going to be a fairly short video talking about episode 6 of Game of Thrones, The Climb. You know, there are a lot of, good title, you know. I don't really have much to say about this episode. Quite frankly, I found it to be one of the more lackluster episodes we've had this season. It was kind of dull. Not really a lot went on besides the ending, which was a big twist for a lot of people and a source of a lot of controversy in the different sides of the fandom about what they did with Ross. But overall, this episode was kind of boring to me. There was way too much Jon Snow for my sensibilities, so that of course put a damper on things. But let's get the review going. I'm going to start off with my favorite scene of the episode by far was the scene between Lady Olenna and Tywin Lannister. Praise her light. Like, I am House Martell, like that's my house, but House Tyrell is gonna become like my second right now, because like in the books they were okay, but I think the adaptation has really done a really great job with the Tyrells, to the expense of certain characters, but overall I think they've done a really great job with the Tyrells, and I'm like loving them. Like, Lady Olenna literally gives me life. Like when Jon Snow is like weighing me down with his face and his storyline I don't give a fuck about, she comes in like a burst of light and fragrance and just brings everything back to spirits. I love her. I love everything that she chooses to be. I love how basically she's like, Tywin, please, your kids fuck each other, don't come at me with what my grandson does, okay? Can you back up off my Facebook? Like, if she would have snatched his wig if he had one on. Like, just lovely Olenna. So I love that kind of back and forth. I think it's interesting the choices that they chose to make with the Tyrell's lineage, because in the book series there are 2 other guys in the house. Marjorie and Loras have 2 brothers, so there's no issue about Loras joining the King's Guard and having to be like heir of High Garden. So I wonder what they're gonna do with this storyline, because they've changed it so much. I think it could be interesting to see. I hope they are going to give Loras more to do. Kind of seems like, you know, while they have made Renly and Loras' relationship more openly gay, whereas in the book it was much more subdued, it doesn't really seem like they seem to take the Loras seriously. He just is more to be like kind of a camp gay almost at certain times. His character is really nothing like he was in the books, and I don't really know how I feel about that. I feel like, alright, you make him more openly gay, but they don't really do anything with his character. They've taken away a lot of his qualities, his interest, the way he carries himself. And so I do hope that if they are going to have him in there more and have, you know, have a more open male gay character be there, that they'll do good stuff with him and he'll be a more productive member of the cast. But yeah, the Tywin Olenna scene was great. Like how she's like, she's old, Cersei's old, you know, no one wants her vagina anymore. I don't want her with my grandson. Oh wait, I need to do this. It was just a great repertoire, and I think it was great to finally see someone just like touch town, like, shut the fuck up, I have more money than you, lick my balls. Well, she doesn't have balls. Lick my ego. Just, you know, I loved it. I love seeing like someone strike back and give the Lannisters one too. Finally we have a house that can really go toe to toe with the Lannisters in terms of being savvy and smart, and basically being just a great foil to their house in general. Then the next scene that I thought was good was the negotiation scene with the Freys, with Robb going to the Freys and basically giving them whatever they wanted, which includes marrying off one of Walder Frey's daughters to Edmure. And he's not happy about that, because he's been avoiding getting married to one of those Frey girls for a long time, and he's like, God damn it, now I have to marry them. And Kat goes and gives her one line of the episode saying, you're gonna ruin our cause to have a prettier wife. I'm just kind of like, look, this whole storyline, how they've made changes, have just made this whole thing clumsy and cluttered. Like, I feel bad for Robb, because I feel in the books he was such a sympathetic character to me, because he was this kid who was thrust into this horrible situation, had so much on his shoulders, tried to do the best that he could, had to be honorable and supportive and kind, and then TV Robb just kind of a douchebag. He kind of just rams off orders, and there's so much that kind of boy king trope. I'm just kind of, that's not what the books were supposed to be doing, and it's not more like a, oh, the books were better thing. It's more of a like, I feel more for the characters in the other situation than I do here, because I feel like Robb really just fucked over everybody and is just trying to make excuses and making other people pay for what he's done. He never seems to take responsibility for it. Like, even in the Frey negotiation, he kind of just seems like, yeah, I know I did bad, but can you give me what I want? Can you help me out? Like, there is no sort of reflection of like, I messed up, and I think that kind of makes me kind of like, Robb, you're annoying. But Edmure agrees to marry one of the daughters, and this will give them the Frey alliance, which is a good thing for Robb. And like I said, we had a scene with Gilly and Sam, where he sings and she teaches him how to light a real fire, and the baby just lays there in her arms awkwardly, and waste of time. I mean, like, Sam could be doing so much more. I mean, like, they're just like, it's a little throwaway scene that accomplishes nothing, but they're to tell you, like, oh, these characters exist. Like, if you're gonna make them exist and do something that, you know, pushes the plot along, not just sing a song. I mean, it was really to show, I guess, the piece of the dragon's glass that he found, like, it's a souvenir. But I just feel like they could do that better. Or at least just realize that just because you have these actors and you don't want to lose them doesn't mean you have to put them in scenes just so you can have them there. Put them in a better place. It doesn't have to be the first 5 minutes of an episode. It's just very throwaway. And then, like I said, there is a lot of Jon Snow. It's him and Ygritte having a speech about how he's good in bed and how now she cares about him and how she doesn't want him to betray her because now she kind of loves him. She got dickmatized. And so, you know, she steals him the boots, they're gonna go up the wall together, they're climbing, someone makes a mistake, and a piece of the wall cracks, which was very suspenseful. Like, even though I'm not a Jon Snow fan, that scene, which is really well done, of him finding a way to, like, head onto the ice and save Ygritte, and, you know, it was just a really well done scene, and I really enjoyed it. And then you see them going to the top of the wall, and, like, they're the ending sequence is a scene between, you know, Ygritte, Jon kissing with, like, My Heart Will Go On basically playing in the background. As they pull back and see the wall from the other side. And for some reason I had just thought, like, isn't it supposed to be, like, kind of wintry? Like, why is it so, like, summery right outside of the wall? Like, it's still, like, you know, the north. But whatever. It wouldn't be as cinematic if they just made it cold and dreary. But so that was Jon Snow's storyline. He climbed that wall, and now hopefully we'll move on. We'll see what's gonna happen next. Then we get a pointless cat fight between Mira Reed and Osha. Why this exists, I don't know. They just argue about skinning rabbits. It's just... And then basically the most important thing we got out of this was seeing that Jojen has these visions, and the visions kind of give him these seizures that come with his powers. And I guess to kind of show Bran what could happen to him if his powers do develop to the point that Jojen's has. Didn't need to have a cat fight in front of it? I don't know. Then we get Arya having some archery lessons with the Brotherhood Without Banners, and then Melisandre comes looking fabulous, by the way. Like, Charisse, I think her name is, or the actress who plays her. I don't remember her name exactly, but she was looking just perfect. Her skin is flawless, her wig is flawless, just everything about her is fabulous. I have learned to kind of appreciate Melisandre. So she comes in, has a conversation with Thoros of Myr about basically how his powers have grown because Dany is back. So because Dany is back, magic and all kinds of things are getting more powerful, and he's been able to bring Beric back to life 6 times, which he shouldn't have been able to do in the first place. And the scene between her and Beric was super erotic. It was just kind of like, she's just stroking all his face and just kind of like, oh god, Melisandre, get it, girl. And then she takes Gendry, and so it is true, Gendry's probably going to be taking the Edric Storm storyline, which makes sense. It's better than including another character, and Gendry was never really that big of a deal in the books anyway. I mean, he just gets mentioned after a point. So I guess it's a way to keep the actor in the show and compress certain things. It's a good change. I understand why they did it. So Gendry's being taken away, and Arya goes to approach Melisandre very calmly, because that's the one thing. Arya, if Gendry had been taken from her like that, she'd have been screaming and about to stab motherfuckers all over the place, but she was very subdued. And then Melisandre gives her a little hint of foreshadowing there before going about her way. So it was a quick scene to set up stuff for the next episode. So then that happened. Then there's a scene with Roose Bolton, Jaime, and Brienne, and Jaime struggling to eat, then Brienne helps him. It's so cute. I love them. Ah! And Jaime basically says, you know, if you let me go now, you know, you can sell me to my father, you know, he'll pay you back the most, you know, he'll fuck you up if you let something bad happen to me. So Bolton's like, I'll send you back to King's Landing, you don't tell your daddy that I did this to you, we're all copacetic. And then Jaime's like, okay, so my best friend Brienne's gonna come with me, and he's like, no, Brienne can't come with you, we're gonna send her back for treason. And Jaime's like, no, that's my best friend, we're best friends now, we've bonded, I fainted in her arms. Come on, man. And I don't want him to bring it, like, it's a dynamic duo. It can't be over yet. I can't. So next episode's gonna be Boss. Plus next episode is written by G.R.R. Martin, so it's gonna be awesome. It's very animated, but back to this episode. And then Theon just gets horribly tortured, and it was a very sad scene to watch. I don't like Theon, but I don't like seeing him get tortured either, you know. It's just very upsetting. You have Barry trying to trick him to figure out, like, who he is, where they're at, what their house is, and he's slowly flaying off a piece of his finger. And it's very interesting, just as a book reader, seeing the hints in the episode of what it is, and it's just like, it's interesting to watch. I understand why they are putting these Theon scenes, because it's just easier to do his storyline this way than rather do it the way it is in the books, because you don't want to risk losing the actor. You know, people forget certain characters, so I get it. And I think with the expanded thing that they have, it works, but I do think it went on for kind of too long, and it was just like, in the end, while it will have narrative payback, it does seem pointless the way they're stretching it out as long as it is, when they could be doing other things to develop other characters like Sansa. But you know, we all have our favorites. I think that's one of the things about, I think, Game of Thrones that's interesting, is that everyone has their favorite characters, everyone has people that they're really invested in, and those are the things that they really want to see. They really want to see their character portrayed a certain way and dealt a certain way, and that's fair. I get that, and for me, that's Sansa. And so what I'm going to end on is kind of the ending stuff with Sansa and Peter Baelish and Roz and all that kind of jazz. So Sansa has a scene with Loras where they talk about weddings and stuff, and you can tell Loras is just like, they're just camping Loras up. It's very it's interesting to see them camp him up so much, and Sansa just being like, I just like you because you're dreamy, I don't really care. And then she goes with and then Tyrion comes in. Oh, there's a scene between Tyrion and Cersei where, again, they give something that Joffrey, they take something that Cersei has done in the books and give it to Joffrey, and I don't understand why they keep doing that. Cersei is bad. It doesn't matter. Like, people still like Cersei even though she's evil. You don't have to, like, make her a better innocent person to, like, make people connect with her. Like, I connect with Cersei. She's not my favorite character by any means, but I get Cersei. I get her motivations. I get why she feels the way she does. I enjoy Cersei as a character. They don't need to make her so sympathetic. But I think that Lena Headey does such a great job that I can kind of deal with it, and I feel like they're still kind of true to who she is, but I also wish I didn't feel the need to, like, you know, play her down so much. And they do that a lot, and it really does bother me. I don't like that they give her crimes to Joffrey or vice versa. But anyway, so they talk about how they have to marry, how it's annoying to them, how, you know, it's gonna be hell for all of them, who's gonna get the worst situation out of all of this, and basically, like, I enjoy the scenes with Tyrion and Cersei, even though they're kind of out of character at times, because Peter Dinklage and Lena Headey just have such great chemistry together as siblings. They feel like people who've known each other for their entire lives. They get each other, they work well together. I love it. That's why I love these scenes, even though they're out of character and pickup time. I enjoy them a lot. I love how Cersei's just like, let's just kill them both, you know, get rid of them. It's such a Cersei thing to do. So I really enjoyed that scene. And then we jump to Sansa and Shae talking about the wedding, Sansa getting ready to undress, and then Tyrion coming in. And it's implied that he's telling Sansa about their being engaged. And I was so pissed off that they cut off this scene and how they did it. Like, I have legitimate griefs with how Sansa's being represented in this show. They just cut out all the things about her reactions and her part of her storyline and her development. It's all just being cut, and then sewed together. And like, you get little scenes where she's kind of being sneaky, but it's so played down that it's like, this is a show where subtlety is not the best for it. They will have whole characters giving these monologues about their motivations, why they feel the way that they feel, these Shakespearean diatribes. It's like, why can't you do that with Sansa? I get that, you know, her character is hard because her story is much internalized. It's her thinking about stuff and her dealing with it in that way. But you have Shae. Have her have back and forth dialogue with Shae. Why does it have to be like, Sansa like, oh, do you think the dresses will be pretty? And Shae just kind of like, oh no, I guess so, whatever. Or like, I think the big point for me was when Shae had to tell Sansa not to trust Peter Baelish. And it's like, in the scene when Sansa's about to meet the Tyrells, she's going back and forth with like, what could they want with me? I have to be careful. I mean, I'm not really anyone important. Marjorie has all the power right now. It's her being clever, her thinking, her deducing stuff. And they have ways to put that into the dialogue, because it's I can't even imagine it in myself how you could break in a dialogue between her and Shae. But it's just kind of like, they don't do that. They don't take the effort to really show the audience what Sansa's thinking, how she really feels, except in the very childlike, naive way that, you know, while there is hints of that, and what I love about Sansa is how she doesn't allow the evil stuff, the dark stuff, to turn her into a completely wicked, dark person, and she is still hopeful, she still is a kind person. She isn't as naive as she is. I mean, she still has levels of that, but she's much more cynical and much more careful around people now, unless they earn her affections, you know. And they really cut that out. Like last season, they cut out her whole storyline completely, and now they're continuing it here, and it's just really bothering me that we can't even see her reaction and her acting with seeing the stuff with Tyrion. And I like the way it played out before. I liked how it was a surprise. They cut a lot of surprises here, and I think that's kind of annoying just to me. I don't like how it's so obvious what stuff is going on. And then we get Varys and Peter Baelish, and Peter, oh, he's so obvious. It's so frustrating. He's not Littlefinger. He just literally just like, I'm gonna sit by the throne and gawk at it like, I love you, and you're the best thing in my life, I want to marry you and sit on you. And then Varys comes in and they sass it out, and then they talk about like Peter's goals, what he wants, and then we discover that he found out about Ross, and we get a throwback to his scene with Ross in season 2 talking about bad investments, and we see that Ross has been sent to Joffrey and was killed. And this has been very controversial because even though Ross has never been liked by a lot of people, it was just a very bad way to kill her off, I feel. Personally for me, like, even though I don't mourn her death because I never liked her as a character, I thought she was kind of a waste, but I felt like, just like, why did this make it so, like, sexualized? I mean, I know she was a prostitute, but it just feels like a waste of her character. You were building her up. There were other ways you could have killed her off in more, in less sexual manners that I feel that would have made it much more palpable, especially because it's not, she's not a real character. She could be whatever people imagine. She doesn't have to, you know, be killed this way. It's not like it can and it has to happen. You chose to let her die this way because it just fit in their minds. I just feel like there are better ways to have handled her death, especially because, you know, Theon's stuff will have narrative payoff, whereas Ross just dies. It's kind of like, oh, well, she's gone. And the fact that, you know, Ross's character took the place of two, you know, they wouldn't be like two black characters that could have existed in the show and were cut off because, oh, it's just easier to compile them into one. This way we get like a regular common folk POV. Well, that's what you said were going to happen, and now you killed her off. We'll never have gotten those women of color POVs, period. And the only brown people are like obsessed with Daenerys in the other side of the world. It's just kind of like, it's all kinds of messed up. There was no need for her to die in such a sexual manner. It was just to say like, oh, Joffrey's evil. We don't already know that. It's so over the top and dry and just dull. It's just like, I don't see the point of having to reiterate this. Like, that's how I felt about the scene where like Joffrey tortured these prostitutes last season. It was not necessary because we don't need these things to remind us that Joffrey is evil. Joffrey has about, you know, the other episode, like, making homosexuality a crime where you get killed, about him basically jerking off over the fact that like someone had a dragon eat their mother in front of had a dragon eat their sister in front of their child the other episode. I mean, and there's stuff in here that he does that makes him a douchebag, that makes him very clear that he's evil. This does not need to be here. There are many things that they could do to reiterate that fact, but they choose not to, and they made him more sympathetic-ish by showing Marjorie jerking him around, by adding those scenes. So if you are whole concerned about this, just like, I just feel like there are other ways that they can handle situations. If you are so concerned with people wanting to feel one way, then take into consideration what you're changing about them in the first place. Because those Marjorie scenes weren't necessarily there. You added them for a reason, to show Joffrey being seen as weak. Then you have to like, oh, well, it's a reminder everyone he's really a douchebag by killing Ross and shooting her in the tits and the vagina, because that's what we think is effective. But everyone has their own opinion about this scene, so everyone has their own way of viewing it. For me, it's kind of like, I don't see the point of it. Like, Peter, one, was never even supposed to be a pimp in the first place. He just is because they decided that's how they wanted to do it. And I feel like he's just so obvious and so very clearly, you know, what he's about. Like, I don't see how anyone could be fooled by him. And I think that's kind of the disappointing thing about Peter's character in general, is just that he was really a great mastermind, but now he's kind of like, hoo-hoo, I'm the villain, low-keyed, basically, and I'm just like, ah. So this episode was kind of a dud for me. That's why the review is so short. I just wasn't a big fan of it overall. It just was very slowly paced. A lot of scenes that I felt could have been either cut or just made shorter. Like, some of it just dragged on for longer than they needed to be, other than the, and even season 1 made up, they could just do certain things better, and I felt that's kind of like a nitpicky thing, but I just legitimately feel that way. I'm not trying to be like, the books are better, so they have to be exactly like the books. I mean, if it was still good and they were changed, that'd be fine. I like the Olenna Tywin scenes. I think it's great. I think it's really interesting. I think they add layer to the Tyrells. I think that they've all been really good, even though they're made up. But they have to be good too. And if I don't think that they're good, I just don't think that they're good. But next episode should be fucking awesome.